Today we are going to review stem-changing verbs, which are better known as boot verbs. So as we know, verbs have two parts. The first part is its ending. So every verb ends in either AR, ER, or IR. The second part of a verb is its stem. The stem is whatever is left of the verb after you take off its ending. So for example, for the verb hablar, if you take off the AR, the stem of the verb is hable, H-A-B-L. Now with a boot verb or a stem-changing verb, the stem changes in all forms except for the nosotros and the vosotros forms. So if you can see from the chart, the shading looks like the form of a boot, which is why we call them boot verbs. So everything inside the shaded boot gets a stem change. Everything outside of the shaded boot does not. So with our boot verbs, we use the same AR, ER, and IR endings with our verbs. There's nothing irregular about these. So we have a couple different types of boot verbs. The first type of boot verb is an E to IE boot verb. So some examples are the verb querer, preferir, pensar, venir, and perder. Now the E in the stem of all of these words is going to change to an IE in all forms with inside the shaded boot. So for example, the verb querer is a stem-changing boot verb, E to IE. So if you notice all of the underlined IEs within the shaded boot, there was an E in there in the infinitive verb form, and when you conjugate it, you need to change that to an IE to make it quiero, quieres, quiere, and quieren. And then the nosotros and the vosotros forms retain that original E. So queremos and queréis. We also have O to UE boot verbs. Some of those verbs include almorzar, volver, envolver, dormir, and poder. So the O in the stem of these words is going to change to a UE when it is conjugated in all forms within the boot. So for example, we have the verb poder. In all of the forms within the shaded boot, the O from the infinitive verb changes to a UE. So we have puedo, puedes, puede, and pueden. And then in the nosotros and the vosotros forms, the infinitive verb retains its O. So podemos and podéis. Next we have E to I boot verbs, which are the verbs pedir, servir, and decir. So the E and the stems of all of these verbs will change to an I in all forms within the shaded boot. For example, the verb pedir. Inside the shaded boot, the E from the infinitive verb will change to an I. So pido, pides, pide, and piden. And the E from the infinitive will be retained in the nosotros and the vosotros forms. So pedimos and pedis. Finally, we have one unique verb that is a U to a UE stem-changing verb, and that is the verb jugar. So the U in the stem of jugar will change to a UE in all forms within the boot. For example, jugar will change to juego, juegas, juega, and juegan, and then the nosotros and vosotros forms will retain the original U, jugamos and jugáis. Now please take a moment to conjugate the following verbs to agree with the subjects that you are given. Careful with the verb decir, this is also irregular in the yo form.